Boxingego here. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon on the top of your screen to get notified when the latest new content drops. Paulie Malignaggi details and tells all what happened in the Conor McGregor sparring. What up, fight world? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the notification gang, hit the bell icon. Shout out to the super chats, the channel donations, and the Patreon patrons. We working. Now, Paulie Malignaggi never really had a loss for words. He did an interview, it sounds like, with Ariel Helwani, and somebody sent this to me on Instagram, so I just clicked on the link and somebody put it up from YouTube. But I don't think it was Ariel's channel. So the link is in the description. I don't know if it's a copyright issue, so if you guys want to see it, watch it quick, and just in case it gets flagged or anything, I don't know. But they made like a condensed version of, I think, a longer interview, and it's just Paulie talking about the sparring. And I really should have took notes, because he went on and he went in for 13 minutes. So again, check it out and then come back to this video, leave a comment. But he was going in on what his experiences were in the sparring 1 and 2. He only did 2 sparring sessions, and at the end of it, he says that Conor McGregor is crooked, like he's a dirtbag. Those are his words exactly, dirtbag. He said he's one of the biggest dirtbags I've ever met. He said that I'm good if I never talk to him or see him again, and just the way he treated people. Not only himself, not only Paulie, but other people he was sparring for, it's not what he's used to. He says, I met a lot of good people in the industry, but I've also met some shitheads and some dirtbags. And he said Conor is one of the biggest. And he also goes on to say that he has doubts about Conor McGregor's rags to riches, living in Ireland on welfare story. And he says, based on the fact that if just a few years ago he was cashing food stamps or whatever the story that people say from Ireland, then he probably wouldn't treat people in the fashion that he does. So definitely some harsh words. I don't know Conor personally, so I don't know. He talked about the sparring. He said the first sparring, he said basically Conor McGregor got the best of him. He says he wasn't really in peak shape, and even in the second sparring he said he wasn't in peak shape, but he knew what to expect and he came correct. And he said first sparring, he just, you know what I mean, he wasn't fit versus Conor McGregor, who had, you know what I mean, been training. He's been training for, I think, a year, thinking he's going to get the Floyd fight, which actually came into fruition. And he was just, you know what I mean, not really, it was just his first go around. And that happens. Even Chris Van Herding, he was talking, I seen an interview, Chris Van Herding, he says when Conor McGregor, when the opportunity arose, he didn't want to pass up the opportunity, but he said he wasn't in his prime form. He was just starting to get in shape. If you box, you'll know what that is like. You know what I mean? I seen Demetrius Andre sparring, and he had just started camp for Willie Nelson. You know what I mean? He was sparring with Kareem Mayfield, Troy King. He sparred with the sauna suit. You know what I mean? A sweatsuit on. And he was just starting. I mean, he looked sharp as hell, especially for someone who was just starting at camp. But it's different, because I'm sure as his camp for that Willie Nelson fight, which he did great on fight night, as his camp progressed, I'm sure the work got sharper and even better. You know what I mean? His precision and everything, because that's where you have to get in shape first of all, and be conditioned to go more and more rounds, and you just ultimately get sharper. So Paulie Malignaggi, he says that Conor McGregor is very Hollywood in the sense that he wants a bunch of yes men and people to tell him he's doing a great job and basically coddle him. He doesn't want people around giving him constructive criticism or anything. People are there like almost as puppets. And you know what I mean, I've heard a lot of this stuff from just rich people. Like I've heard this about Floyd Mayweather too. Like, you know what I mean, just sometimes when you're rich, you might get big-headed and you want people who just build you up and, you know what I mean, laugh at all your jokes. Eminem said that in the song. He says someone laughing at a joke that ain't even funny, like, ah, you're so funny, Marshall. Y'all know the song I'm talking about. But that's what Paulie was saying, is basically he wants a yes man. And he says he always was on edge during this camp. He was saying things like, after the first sparring, he was supposed to spar another day, but I think Conor canceled, something like that. And then he came back for the second sparring, and he had to work his job as a Showtime commentator for Adrian Broner versus Mikey Garcia. So Conor worked that whole week because Conor, you know, I mean, he didn't fly out to Broner Garcia or anything, so he kept working. So from Paulie's documenting of the sparring 1 versus 2, he believes that they felt, since Paulie was not in the greatest shape, Conor did good in sparring 1, plus Paulie was away for a week. He said they assumed that he wasn't training, he wasn't gonna show better, but he says he had other plans. So he said during that week, that Broner Garcia week, even though he had to work, he was getting some workouts in, which makes a lot of sense because the Broner Garcia fight was in New York, and that's where he's from. So I'm pretty sure he probably shot to Gleason's. I mean, he knows the whole area, I'm sure. So he probably went to the gym and got some workouts in. And he says he made sure he was ready for that second sparring. He said he came back to Vegas after Broner Garcia, got the sparring in the second sparring. And according to Paulie, he says Conor was very sharp and he did make improvements. He says the difference, though, is Conor's improvements are small increments, like incremental gains, versus he says he's a boxer, a lifelong boxer. So he says if there would have been a sparring 3 and 4, he would have got sharper in a quicker amount of time, like a faster, more expedited timepiece, because he's been doing it for 20 years or whatever it's been. But he said Conor did improve, make some small subtle improvements, and he says Conor did very good in the first 5 rounds. He said it was beyond that point, this what makes a fighter, those moments where you start getting tired and things like that. And that's when he started expressing what happened. He said he started to come on, he had put some work into the body, and his confidence and his counterpunching, his accuracy was growing. And he said he started like giving Conor work, right? And then he kind of fast forwards to the last 2 rounds. He says he was tapped out, I think, after round 10, but he said he was doing some shit talking in there. He said he was hitting him to the body, and Conor would whimper. Conor didn't like that body work. And he says Conor McGregor was just like whimpering, and he was talking shit like, oh, you like that body attack? Here, take another one, have another one. And then he said at one point in between rounds, Paulie started yelling at Dana White, like, this is the bitch you brought me? And he said Dana White wasn't responding and wasn't commenting or like making any expressions. He was just listening, but he was looking at him as he was saying it. So he says he knows Dana White was hearing what he was saying. He just had a poker face on, basically. And Paulie said he raised his voice, and even though Conor was in his corner in between rounds, he was saying it loud enough to Dana White, but loud enough where Conor McGregor could hear. And he basically sounded like he had some success with the body work from what he's saying. And then he says he will give Conor credit for the last 2 rounds. He said Conor closed the show and finished the last 2 rounds very solid. And he said the push down, oh yeah, he talked about the push down. He said the push down occurred during Conor, one of his worst moments in that second sparring. He said in that second sparring, he was frustrated, and then he ended up pushing him down. And then that was kind of that, and that wrapped up the second sparring session. But he said he did a lot better than the first. Conor did good in the first 5 and the last 2, which would be maybe 7 rounds to 5, I guess. And that was that. He said he went to wash up or went to the locker room afterwards. He ran into Conor McGregor, and he was like, good work, good work. And he was like, yo, you too, Conor, good work. So according to Paulie, he's saying he started to feel like, oh, okay, maybe this is a sign that we can bury the hatchet, and everything, like the reason maybe I'm doing too much, and the reason I feel uncomfortable in camp, like they're trying to set me up, or I don't feel at home the way he's treating people and stuff. Maybe we gained mutual respect in that second sparring, and he you know what I mean, he congratulated me and said good work, so maybe it's gravy from here on out. He said, but then in the locker room, he says he had already asked Conor to chill out with posting the weird pictures. He says when Conor posted the first sparring session with the hands behind the back, he says he posted that, and he said I felt a little bit weird about it, but I wasn't all the way mad. You know what I mean? The picture doesn't show too much. And he says he did the hands behind the back to Conor McGregor also. You know what I mean? But obviously they're not going to leak a picture of Paulie doing it or having success. So he said he did that to him. He wasn't really tripping too much off of that. But then there was, like, I guess, other pictures. So he says when he caught Conor after the good work, he felt like maybe we're on good terms. So he brought it up to him again, and he was like, yo, he was like, good work, but can you chill out with the posting the weird, crazy pictures? You know what I mean? We're supposed to be helping each other out. And then he says Conor McGregor basically walked away and put his hands in the air like, I don't know, Paulie. We'll have to see. And then he says he thought that was like a fucked up response, basically. Like, what? Like, I'm here man to man asking you to, you know what I mean, keep everything in house, stop trying to ruin my reputation and build street cred off of me at my expense. And he said he expected a response like when Conor was walking away, he expected him to be like, oh, I'm just fuck with you, man. All right, well, you know what I mean, it's all good. Let's finish out this camp and have a good camp. And he said that's not what happened. He said Conor just literally jetted off and walked off like, I don't know. He said he checked his Twitter DMs the next day, and he seen a DM from Conor McGregor, and it was the picture where he got pushed down or knocked down or whatever, and it had no caption, had no text. It was just two pictures, one of them being that. And he thought that was kind of weird, and I guess a day later or whenever, that's when the pictures started leaking online, and he was like, oh hell no, this dude is he's a dirtbag, you know what I mean? He set me up, and that was basically it. So you guys listen to it and interpret it to how you think what went down based on what you've been given. Obviously it's hard unless you're Dana White or anybody else. And speaking of Dana White, Paulie said another red flag or something that was weird is he says they're very, very like top flight security when it comes to Conor sparring. They're very, like, it's a secret society. There's tons of secrecy, and it's like they want you to put your cell phones in a bucket just so no one's sneaking around getting clips and photos of the work that's being done. And only Conor's photographers can be in there. You got to give up your cell phone before you come in so nobody's secretly capturing things. And he said they just have it on lockdown like that. And he said that's why he thought it was kind of weird when he came back from the Broner Garcia fight. And he said there was like special guests in the audience. He said some people he didn't know, Conor's agent, Dana White, the head of UFC, the Fertitta brothers, Fertitta. He said there was people like spectators. So he's like, oh wow, they probably think I was slacking because I had to work for Showtime and I had to fly and all that and jet lag. So they probably think I wasn't working and I was slacking. And he admits that he told Dana White, he was like, this the bitch you brought me? And he said he admitted that he lied a little bit basically about not working for a week. He was like, man, I just got off a plane, I ain't worked out in a week, and this is the best he got. He says even though he did, he was just like kind of boosting up to try to make him sound like even shittier. So that's Paulie's account. He said that there were spectators, and it just kind of sounded like a setup. He felt like they were always trying to use his name to build up, like I said, Conor's street cred, and use his name and what he is to boxing to bash him at his own expense. You know what I mean? And he said that's not how it should go down. Like he says Conor has a bunch of yes men to the fact of when you're doing that, you're supposed to work. You're supposed to be working to build each other. He even says something like Conor would do weird stuff, and I've heard Floyd does this too, but he would do stuff like you're basically on call. You're a sparring partner, you're on call. So it could be 3 p.m., it could be midnight. You're just supposed to be available. So he's like, I couldn't even go to the mall and buy a pair of sneakers because we didn't know what time we were going to be requested for sparring. You know what I mean? And he said there was a day that they were supposed to spar and Conor didn't show up. So I don't know. That's what Paulie's saying. I really, in my honest opinion, of course I wasn't there, so I don't know full details of what happened. But I really believe Paulie Malignaggi. I really do. And it's not just like, oh, boxing versus MMA, because I like Conor McGregor. You know what I'm saying? I don't know him personally. He ain't never done nothing to me. He's funny. He's entertaining. But I'm going to tell you why I believe Paulie. Because I know people and I know psychology. And the thing is, what Paulie is saying, when I listen to people's stories and try to interpret it the best way with the information given, the fact that Paulie is saying certain things and not making himself sound like he's Superman and only like he's never at fault. You know what I'm saying? When people tell stories and there's retellings of stories and they're never at fault, they're always in a position of power. There's never any error on their behalf. It's always someone else's fault. Things like that. That makes it hard for me to believe the story, because that's not, in general, that's not life. And just from hearing Paulie, it sounds sincere and it sounds honest. For example, he admitted that Conor made some improvements from session 1 to session 2, right? He admitted that Conor McGregor did good in the last 2 rounds and closed very well. And that's where I think they got that one picture of Paulie where it looks like he's getting punched by the turnbuckle, like, you know what I mean, in the corner of the ring. He also admitted that he started off strong in the first 5 rounds, right? So to me, it sounds balanced and realistic. You know what I mean? Again, I have a hard time believing, like the whole push down knockdown. I think Team McGregor could have easily, at some point, through multiple photos, a GIF, a short video sequence, they could have easily cleared that up. If Paulie is lying, you like, okay, put it this way. You guys have to understand psychology. Paulie didn't get paid and he already left the camp. So they're done. That situation is done. He just did an interview, says, I don't give a shit if I ever see him again or talk to him again in my life, right? So that whole relationship sounds like it's not in a good spot for, you know what I mean? So that's for starters. So my point is this: if that's the case and you had him sign a non-disclosure agreement, he's saying you're a dirtbag and one of the shadiest people he's ever had to deal with or be in camp with, right? He's voided the non-disclosure because he didn't get paid, and he's telling you, look, you whimpered like a girl. At this point, you've already made him look bad when he was in camp, so why wouldn't you release just that clip of him getting knocked down? If you knocked him down with the shot, why don't you just release that? You know what I mean? That's what I would do. I mean, he already broke the non-disclosure and he's no longer in camp, and you weren't respecting him when he was in camp according to him. So what do you have to lose? Might as well just leak that part and make him look even worse. You know what I'm saying? If he's lying, that's why I don't believe he is lying until otherwise proven. Now, I have no problem being wrong myself. So if they leak the tape tomorrow and it's a flush punch that lands and it drops Paulie, then I'll be like, oh, okay, I didn't think that was true, but thanks to Conor and his team for clearing that up. But the fact that they haven't done that and they're just leaving it to the pictures to tell the tale, and then you have someone who's refuting it and he's already left the camp, you could, if you were shitting on him with the weird pictures and hands behind the back and knocked down on the canvas pictures while he was in camp, the fact that he's talking out and speaking out against you, calling you a dirtbag and cheap and arrogant and you want yes men around, and he's no longer in camp, then it would be easy to clear that up, but they haven't done that yet. So I really believe Paulie here. I know it's not going to sit well with a lot of the Conor. Conor has a lot of radical fans. He's a good fighter, but a lot of people, just the passion and what he brings to the table, they just assume, want to believe him. The video that I'm talking about, where I heard the audio from this interview, people were like, oh, Paulie's a bitch and he's complaining and Paulie sounds desperate. Sounds desperate about what? He's giving his version and account of events on what happened. What is desperate about it? What is, you know what I'm saying? I don't understand what's desperate. He makes money. He works for Showtime. He's going to be calling the fight. What is the desperation thing? You know what I'm saying? Some of y'all just say stupid shit. So I really believe Paulie here. Like I said, the big factor is what he's doing. There's some balance to it. He's not just making himself like Superman, like, oh, I beat the shit out of him rounds 1 through 12 and I did this and that, and he's nothing. He's not doing that. Even with this ill will, even with the now seeming bad blood and how they played him and basically had an agenda and was out to get him and set him up with having spectators and Dana White and all these people in the crowd and expecting that he's slack because he was on Broner Garcia, releasing weird pictures to make him look like unflattering pictures of him. And he's still, even with that, so that to me shows a bit of integrity. The fact that you cannot be feeling someone, but at the same time, you're still not being as petty as you possibly can be, and you're not lying on them, and you're still giving them credit in certain regards, and you're just speaking your mind about the other things that you don't approve of, to me that shows more integrity and more, it just seems more ethical. And that's just what I see. I mean, straight up, Conor, he's on the high rise to success in a short period of time. So I mean, what Paulie's saying could be true. You know what I mean? Why wouldn't he want a bunch of yes, man? He's the man in the UFC. He's making all this money. He's the highest paid UFC mixed martial artist. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sure a little bit of ego comes with that. No pun intended. So I really, you guys can listen to it for yourself and interpret it how you want, but I really and truly believe Paulie Malignaggi just for the reasons I stated, because like I said, he could easily be like, the gloves are off, fuck Conor McGregor, he's a bitch, this sucks, and he's not really even doing that. He's telling you what he doesn't like and what was handled in what way, but he's also being realistic about it. He's giving him credit. Oh, he closed rounds 1 and 2. He was sharp. You know what I mean? He did this and that. But the pictures Conor's releasing and stuff, all of them make him look like Superman. Like, there's never a bad shot that's being leaked. So, you know what I mean? Anybody could do that. Like I said, I can take a Super Bowl game and get 2 teams, and I can get all the plays from the losing team who lost the Super Bowl, but I can take their best plays and make a compilation, and it'll look like they won the Super Bowl. But if you watch the Super Bowl, that's not what really happened. So, you know what I mean? I'm not even really disputing, because it sounds like Conor held his own in the sparring, so I'm not really going tit for tat. It sounds like Conor may have even got the best of Paulie Malignaggi. I'm just talking about the other aspects of it. I don't think, honestly, I just believe Paulie. That's basically what it boils down to. I don't think that Paulie has much reason to lie. You know what I mean? What he says sounds like it could be legit. And we haven't really heard much of Conor McGregor saying like, oh man, we didn't leak those pictures, or here's the knockdown. So you know it's real. You know what I mean? Because if you had that type of dirt and Paulie's refuting it, why not slay him now by showing that and showing that he's a liar? You know what I mean? That's not going to give away the game plan if you show a 10-15 second clip. You know what I mean? And then all the only Conor's photographers, and they got to give up their cell phones and stuff. That sounds legit. That sounds like something he really did, because again, all the pictures, there's no regular media there, and the only pictures that I've seen are from Conor's buddies from the Mac life. And like, you know what I mean, Paulie, I'm sure he said in this interview he couldn't even bring his own trainer. He had to have sparring partners be in his corner. So, I mean, I really haven't seen Team McGregor refute a lot of this stuff. Let me know your thoughts. Link in the description. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Make sure you smash the like button as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button. And you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.